All right, welcome back, everyone, to Showtime at the Senate. Today, my guests are Nikki Neuzil, the owner of Flamingo Vintage in Southwest Detroit, and film aficionado and her boyfriend, Finn Formica. Is that right? Did I say those right?
You did, my man.
All right. And so, again, I'm your host, Nick Baldwin, and the idea behind these shows is to preview all of our upcoming events at the Senate Theater. And a lot of the times, what I want to bring to you is a conversation about the films we've chosen and why we selected them and interesting things about them. This week it was a little different because the screening we're having is Grease, and Grease is one of the most popular, noted films of all time. So, what is there to say that hasn't already been said? But we'll talk about it anyway, and we'll talk about the cool things we have going on at that event. The event, by the way, is Saturday, February 15th. It'll be a nice little Valentine's Day date you can take your sweetie to. 8 p.m. Doors are at 6 p.m. because we have a vintage pop-up coming in, which is why Nikki's here. So, Nikki, tell me about Flamingo Vintage. I know that you're not originally from Detroit, so tell me about your start in the vintage clothing retail business and your journey to Detroit.
Yeah, so I'm from Texas, and I started off in a school bus. So I sold vintage clothing out of a little green school bus in Austin on South Congress. And then I eventually moved into a brick and mortar store in Texas in Bryan. And this is my third store, and so far my favorite. So my store is a 100-year-old Art Deco department store that I renovated. Spent 8 months renovating it, and we are located on Verner and Junction at 5449 West Verner Highway.
Very cool. So, tell me about the process of buying vintage clothing and how you decide what to bring into your store to sell to people.
Well, I usually buy based on past experiences, so things that I've sold before, also things that I'm knowledgeable in. So anything really from the 20s to the 80s is kind of where I focus in on. And I always try to buy something that's currently wearable.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does that change over time as far as like fashion? Vintage clothing, those are things that are popular at the time, during the time period, but how does that change? How does vintage clothing change to modern times exactly?
Well, a lot of it has to do with, current season trends. So we always try to keep everything on trend, which changes all the time. Also, clothing is a form of self-expression, so a trend means something different to everybody, right? I always encourage people to wear something that they feel comfortable and confident in because you really are setting the stage. I mean, people do judge you based on what you wear, so in a good way, I hope, right?
Well, in a good way, yeah. So, thinking about Grease, which has such a prominent look and feel to the film, is that a popular style that you see that you purchase for, you buy for, that
Definitely.
you see people buying?
Yeah, definitely. I actually got my start because I always wore 1950s dresses. So I was always wearing like a full 50s outfit with the hat and the gloves and the purse, the whole nine, just because that's what I was into. And random people would stop me on the street and say, "You look so put together. I really love this. I wish I could wear that." And that's kind of how I started selling vintage. I just sold stuff that was left over in my closet that, I wasn't going to wear again. And so I would definitely say 50s are very relatable, and I think one of the easiest eras to pull off.
Okay. Now, where do you find these things?
Everywhere.
Everywhere's the answer. So I was thinking, in preparing for this podcast, I was thinking about Grease, and I watched it again, of course, in preparation. And while I was watching it, I was realizing that I don't think I'd actually ever seen the movie all the way through in one sitting, because it's a movie that's such in pop culture consciousness.
Yeah.
And you know the songs, and you know the moments, and you know the scenes just by heart, and having seen them on television or whatever. But I don't actually think I'd had ever watched it all the way through from start to finish. And you had a similar experience recently.
Yeah, actually, after I left the Senate Theater hanging out with you and Lindsay last week, I went home and my boyfriend Finn put on the soundtrack, and I haven't probably listened to that soundtrack in, 15, 20 years. And as soon as he put it on, I knew every word to every song. And it just brings you right back to that place of like happy childhood, for me anyways, because it's just such a uplifting, generally you feel good when you watch Grease. Everybody does.
Absolutely.
And I think that's why they relate to it.
That was the question I was going to ask, is I wonder why Grease? So this movie is released in 1978. It takes place in 58, I believe, or the 50s. And I wonder why. Why does it really resound with people still today?
I mean, I don't know. It's okay to say. For me, it's like a cult following with the idea behind kind of the rockabilly movement. You know what I mean? And this the way everybody was dressing, and I guess it helped with John Travolta. You know, coming off of Saturday Night Fever. You know, what was that? Kind of the end of the disco era and all that stuff. But I think that it's a time of obviously the rockabilly movement's very popular right now, and vintage clothes are very popular, which, you know, I admire my girlfriend very much for what she's done, and, you know, I enjoyed her style years back. We met in Nashville, Tennessee, but, you know, it's really, vintage clothes right now are actually outselling brick and mortar stores. You know what I mean? The Macy's are filing bankruptcy and all that stuff, and it's rightfully so because, you know, I think to recycle clothes in the aspect of, you know, it doesn't matter what era or age it is in, you know what I mean? I don't know how many people might be rocking bell bottoms on the outside, you know what I mean? Or like, you know, these days, but I think that...
well, there'll be a time.
Yeah, they will.
Around.
You know, I don't know. I'm old, so I remember those, my man. So I'm in my 40s. In fact, my mom took me to see Grease when I was 5 years old. So.
I always think that about my closet. I'm like, well, I don't want to get rid of this because it's probably going to come a time later where I'm going to want this again. I'll probably just go back to the vintage store buying this clothes I used to own.
Right, and yeah, if it fits myself as being a man of the portly nature, then, you know, I'll still... She's actually even told me, as being a vintage clothing store owner, which is ironic, that I need to get rid of some clothes because trying to be a man of fashion, and I have for, you know, over 20 years, I guess, now. So, but I think it's great what you guys are doing, and I look forward to it. I've already picked out an outfit, sadly enough. And,
very cool, yeah. At the screening, by the way, you were very encouraged to dress up in your best 50s
We're going to have a best dress contest.
We have a best dress contest. Do we have a prize?
Gift certificate to the shop.
Yeah. Beautiful.
One of our first dates, actually, I got her a pink ladies jacket, and so
He
she didn't even know that.
did. He did.
Yeah,
So
it
I'll
was
be
fun.
wearing that.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So it's tight on her, and it's gonna look great. She's amazing. So
He
she's
always
beautiful.
tells me that I'm like Rizzo. I think I'm more like Sandra D.
Well, I think
personally,
she's the love child of Sandra D and Rizzo, in my opinion. But,
that was a Rizzo especially because it was the thing I was thinking about. Something it doesn't dawn on you as a kid, but you know these are not high schoolers playing in this movie.
No,
right.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it did. And it's only when I watched it again that it like all hit me in the head. Like, oh yeah, like no, they seemed like high schoolers to me when I was in middle school watching it.
I read that they did a crow's feet test. Did you hear about that?
No.
When they were doing the screening, they would literally have everybody, you know, smile and crinkle their face. And if you had crow's feet here, then you were too old to play the part.
Well,
In Greece.
The funny part was the main character, of course, you know, Zuko, my man. You know, he was the youngest, you know, coming off Welcome Back, Carter, which I love. You know what I mean? I mean, the 70s for me as a child growing up, you know, I'm mid-40s or whatever. But for me personally, it was funny because, you know, you had Welcome Back, Carter, which I love those guys. You know, you got to watch them, you got to love those guys. And, you know, but how can I put it? It was funny because he was like the youngest, you know what I mean? The rest of them literally looked like they were in their early 30s or something.
That's right.
You know?
He was the most appropriate.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. But he was young. I mean, you know, Saturday Night Fever, he did that when he was like 20, you know, those things. So
I think he had just made that film prior to Greece's release.
he did. I mean, he was on fire. You know,
Yeah, he was on fire.
Yeah.
And he
That
had
was his
been
year.
in Greece, the play, prior to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I was reading a lot about all the sexual innuendos that they were throwing into the film, too.
Right.
The play, I've never actually seen the play before. Have you guys?
No.
No?
Actually, I have not seen the play.
I've
so.
not seen it, but so I was reading about it, and there's a lot more obvious sexual innuendos in the play, and then when they translated it to the film, they had to kind of slim it down and trim it down to be more appropriate.
Right.
Yeah.
But they were still sneaking some things in, like during the Grease Lightning scene, and there's John
I was
Travolta's.
telling her.
Were you telling?
No, go. I mean, that's it, man. That's the truth.
And the saran wrap. Do you know about the saran wrap?
Yes.
So there's this, apparently teenagers were using saran wrap as condoms in the 50s.
Wow. Yeah.
And there's a big part of that in the play that they had cut out, but John Travolta found some saran wrap and, you know, used it a little bit in the Grease Lightning dance, just to. as
He
a
took it
throwback.
out of. He took it out of a roll.
Yeah,
Yeah, they were straight.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice it was dancing when he was dancing around. I was just, I don't know, it just blew right by me. But then reading back on it, I was like, oh, that's what that was for.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's when he's singing the Sandy song at the drive-in.
The hot dog in the bun.
The hot dog
Yeah,
in the
I know.
bun.
Isn't that crazy?
I've never even noticed that.
Don't you guys remember let's go to the lobby? We had the dancing hot dog and Coke. I mean, I was just like, I know.
We have
I
those
know.
things at the Senate Theater a lot.
Right.
But,
Yeah. I haven't been there yet. I can't wait, man. So I look
Oh, you
forward to
haven't
it.
been?
No. I've just been in town a few weeks now. But
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You just moved.
Yeah, I've been coming to Detroit since I was a child. I just had never had a chance to be in the Senate Theater. You know what I mean? So
Well, you'll get to. We live down the street.
We do. We live
We'll
close.
get
We're right
to
there.
Saturday, February 15th.
Yes.
Absolutely. Great Valentine's Day.
That's
situation.
right.
Yeah.
So you've coordinated a vintage pop-up for us that day.
Yes, exactly. So I will be bringing vintage clothing. I also have like a collection of petticoats, jewelry, gloves, different accessories and stuff in case you come and you kind of want that extra little piece. We also have Little Bit Vintage coming. Her name's Elizabeth. She's really, really great. And also Emily Schwartz, who owns Live-In Vintage. She also puts together the Ferndale Vintage Fashion Market at the Rust Belt twice a year. So Emily coordinates that entire market. So both of those girls are coming with me. So there'll be 3 confirmed vendors.
Cool.
And we're all going to be bringing 50s stuff, all going to be wearing 50s stuff, obviously singing along. Can't wait to watch. I mean, it should be a good time.
Oh, it's going to be a great time. And again, we're having the doors open a little earlier so that everyone can come and shop this vintage clothing. Doors will be at 6. The movie will start at 8 o'clock. Tickets are only $5.
That's a heck of a deal, folks. Just
a deal.
'cause the clothes itself are going to be amazing. So definitely come down for the shopping as well.
There was, I also learning, so when they filmed Grease, John Travolta's not this big star yet. No one in this movie is a big star at the time of the filming. And really, it was considered a risk for Paramount. They were not like high on this film. They didn't think a whole lot of it. They were, the budget for the film was only $6 million,
That's true.
which has gone on to make over $400 million and still creating things. There's a prequel in development at Paramount right now, and there's a
prequel.
a prequel.
Interesting.
I don't think it's supposed to be about Zuko or anybody, but different characters.
Right.
And a series, a high school musical styled series, going to be on the new HBO streaming service, HBO Max.
Wow.
So it's still here.
Oh, absolutely. Well,
Still alive and kicking.
I mean, I know that a couple high schools, we didn't do it in high school, of course. Bye Bye Birdie, which I loved, but anything goes. But they did Grease in high school, so it's one of those things. It's universal, you know what I mean? So I think kids can appreciate it more, and then hence appreciate clothes, and I think old things too that are very stylish. The theater is in it. You know what I mean? Things that are a throwback to appreciate history. I think. You know
Well,
what I mean?
and there's something about this movie that is related to everyone, and it's the simple things. It is nostalgia, it's romance, and it's memories in high school. And I don't know. I think why it resounds so well with audiences still is everyone can relate to that own moment in their life.
Yeah, the cars are rad too. So
And
the cars are very rad in that movie. But
I felt so bad for the car when they did the race.
I know.
They
I
destroyed.
know.
They worked so hard on it all movie, and
I
then they danced all over it, and then it just gets destroyed. Not destroyed, but severely damaged.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely agree with that. So it wasn't a Steve McQueen movie, but it was pretty tragic.
Right.
So, big Steve McQueen fan. So yeah, Bullet's probably the best car chase of all time in that film. But yeah.
That probably beats the Grease. car
Right.
chase.
It does. It does. But still, I was very upset about it too. So in the Grease Lightning, man, that car was so smooth when I was a kid. They were like
Yeah.
the saran wrap. I think they were detailing it actually when they were running around. I remember they was like they came back around and they're all white and they're
Back to the saran wrap.
what? Yeah, it was amazing. Well, I'm back on the saran wrap. I can't get it now. I have to think about it. We have to. Yeah, I didn't use those when I was a kid, and for those things. So.
No, that was news to me. That was even an idea.
Right there you are. So.
But anything else you guys want to say about Grease? Any notes? Anything cool you think about it?
I mean, I enjoy the film. I can't wait. So
It's going to be a good time. Again, so all the information, Saturday, February 15th, Valentine's Day screening. It's not the day after Valentine's Day, obviously, but
Yeah.
it's the weekend of Valentine's Day. Bring your sweetheart. Come see Grease for $5. Check out the vintage clothing that we have coming, and we'll see you at the Senate Theater.
Yeah, great.
Thanks for coming,
Yeah,
guys.
thank you for having us. So.